and welcome to A Wealthy Life. This is the start of a series of podcasts all about money. Some of them will be very specifically about helping women to become more financially confident and more financially secure, but most of these are relevant regardless of your gender. But I do want to discuss the issue of female financial inequality, the impact that it's having, not just from the wage difference, but into the pension difference, and why it's imperative that we make sure as women that we understand our money. But in here will be lessons for the men as well. So whatever gender you are, if you listen to these podcasts, you are going to learn masses about your money, to understand how you can start doing simple things right now to make a massive difference down the line at whatever age you choose you want to retire. So enjoy, make sure you subscribe, and I'd love to hear your comments on this. Do get in touch. Right, over to me. Hello and welcome to A Wealthy Life. I want to go off topic today and talk about whether there is a myth of gender equality and what that myth is. And this is relevant to both men and women. It's relevant to our mindsets, to our future finances, and of course, whether you end up investing in property or not. So I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and a man said to me that there is no such thing as a gender pay gap or gender inequality. He said, why should women get preferential treatment? Because we wanted equality, so why should we get preferential treatment if what we want is to be treated equally? I guess you can imagine what was going through my mind at the time, how to be polite and reply to this. But the thing for me was, yes, we do want equality and we deserve equality. But in order to get that equality, we need support. And before you start going, right, okay, let's switch off from this because I'm a man and this isn't important to me. It is important no matter what gender you are. And it's hard if you don't agree and can't understand why women in the same role should earn the same amount of money. And it's hard to explain to you if you don't understand that women are biologically disadvantaged while equally biologically blessed to have children. But that comes with not only the toll on your body, but the toll on your finances, which to me just doesn't seem right. And there's a lot of history behind all of this that I will get into in bits and pieces over the next few weeks. What I want to do is challenge this idea of how tackling gender equality in all the ways that it plays out is actually something that is against equality, because it's not. And of course, the biggest problem out of all of this is who's going to pay. Is it the employer's role to make up the female employee's difference in income, and how will that affect business owners, particularly small business owners? So we can't put all the burden on the employer, and how does that affect people who are unemployed? Is it to do with society? Well, then that's going to impact taxes, and we all know where the government is with that at the moment. Should men have a different, let's call it tax system to women? Should men pay more tax that enables women to pay the same amount of tax we're paying now, but actually that disparity, that extra income then be paid from males into female wage packets? I can imagine the furore that would create, and that somehow still doesn't seem fair to me on men. Not all men will marry, not all men will have children, not all men will have female partners that are financially disadvantaged. So it's very, very complicated, far more complicated than even my creative minds can solve. So what I thought I'd do is, rather than trying to solve the problem at the top, is work my way through over the next few weeks at looking at how we can change perceptions and how we can solve the problem ourselves as individuals, as men, as women, as partners, as families, and not worry about government and society trying to fix something that is such a big problem that they are going to just constantly bat it down the line rather than take it seriously. Go through some of the stats that I hope will let you know why this needs to be addressed, why there is this interconnected situation between caregiving responsibilities leading to less working hours, leading to pension disparities. and start with some facts. And those facts, I think, are going to help us all come to a conclusion that something needs to be addressed, even if maybe we can't solve it. Mind you, if you have a solution, please do share. And I'd love to have that as a conversation as well. But let's go with the moment that we're not going to worry about what the grand solution is. We're going to solve our problem down at a local level, at a personal level. So let me start off with the fact that many women work fewer hours due to caregiving. So this could be whether taking time off for maternity, taking time off because your children are at school and you need to do picking them up and dropping them off from work. It can also be that women are often the ones that reduce their hours or even exit the workforce to look after elderly relatives. And it's this caregiving role that significantly affects our earning potential and with that, our career progression, because I do believe that employers will look at a woman who has a young family as less reliable than a woman who has no children at all. And as awful as that is to say it, I can imagine how that would be there, because you are never going to know whether your female employees' children might get sick that morning. You will, I believe, as an employer, potentially unconsciously hold that woman back from more serious roles that require 100% commitment. Now, whether the woman wanted those roles or not is another matter. What I would also say is that caregiving responsibilities, according to research by the FT, have doubled since 2010. So in the last 10 to 15 years, with women being in the workforce now forced to reduce their hours to take care of older relatives, and potentially more women having children older in their lives and therefore not having family support, more of those women taking time off work. What does this do to wages and to everything else? Well, on average, a woman earns 17% less than a male colleague. And it doesn't apply to just low-paid jobs. Even in the FTSE 100, research showed that of the 100 companies on the stock exchange, female directors on average earned about 333,000 roughly, where their male counterparts earned in excess of 1.2 million. So all sorts of averaging is very dangerous, as you can imagine. So the key point here is that a lot of women are working lesser hours. They're also then affected by the gender pay gap, and all of this is having an impact on the pensions. Well, let's pick up on that topic of the specific gender pay gap. And I'm never a fan of naming things like this because I don't know, I feel like it somehow diminishes it rather than acknowledges it, because it rounds everything up. We get statistics that are groupings. And as I said to you, that the gender pay gap certainly increased since COVID and is now hovering around the 17%. But what's more important under these three words, gender pay gap, is the fact that is directly influencing women's financial stability, their long-term financial security. And as I said, there's no UK policy that is directly addressing this. Legal in General looked at 4 million of its pension scheme members, and they found that the pension gap is really interesting for women. In the early parts of their careers, when women are young, the gap between their male and their female members of their pensions is at around 17%. But as women get older, compared to men when they're in their 50s, you're looking at the pension gap already being a massive 56% difference between men and women's pensions when they're in their 50s. And this is that direct result you can see from having less income through lower wages and through less hours that they can allocate towards their pensions, but also allocate towards their savings and any investments and anything else that they're looking to do with their long-term financial security. And that's not a good position to be in. And just to say, it's not just a British problem, it is a global problem. So I then looked at some research from the World Economic Forum, and they suggested that it will take roughly 134 years for global gender parity. So that's around about 2158. Now that's taking it on a global basis, and it's from their Global Gender Gap report. But when you look at the stats, we're not down the bottom of the numbers. We're up there at the top of being a big gap that needs addressing. So whether it takes 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, or 134 years, it's not going to be seen in my lifetime, or quite frankly, in my daughter's lifetime, and might, if I'm lucky, just catch the tail end of my granddaughter's lifetime. We're talking about 3 generations minimum before there is gender parity in the UK. And that's shocking. That's shocking. You know, the gap has only closed by 0.1% since 2023. And if you add to this the fact that while women might have to give birth to children, we do get to live longer than men, but we're living longer with smaller pensions. So on average, a woman, well, and it depends on what year you're looking at, but this is the data from 2022. A female will live to about 82.6 years, while a man will live to 78.6 years. If we ignored the 0.6, there's a 4-year difference. 4 years that a woman will live without their male partner, with lower pensions, with less savings, and therefore they have to live their last 4 years in increased poverty. Now, that's not to say that they might have been reasonably affluent when they were a couple, but they could equally have been both struggling financially, because financial intelligence and preparing for our retirements is something that affects all of us. But on top of that, your final 4 years of life, you're going to have a lot less money. You're going to have a lot more financial worries. You're going to be eating less, turning the heating off more, all of that sort of thing, which is really, if you're going to get to live to 82, and let's be honest, with medical interventions, by the time I get to 82, I'm seriously hoping that the longevity will be close to the late 90s, even the hundreds. I don't want to be dying when I'm 82 for sure, but I need to make sure that I've got the money to live the life that I want to live at that end. Of course, the health as well. And that applies to all of us. You know, we are living a lot longer. I did a piece of research when I was talking about pensions on one of the earlier podcasts. And I said that the whole idea of a pension was that when it was created by employers, was to give employees the idea of, oh, look how nice I'm being to you. I will give you a pension. You work for me really hard now, and then I'll give you a pension. And what happened was they set that pension age just outside the average life expectancy. So in the early days, pensions were paid out at 45 because men weren't expected to live that long. And of course, this is where we've got the problem now. If pensions are paying out at, let's call it 65, and therefore men are living 13 years, but women are living almost 20 years beyond that, you can see why this is a bigger burden on the state. And you can see why they are looking to change women's pension age to 67, which is wrong, because particularly for all those WASPy women, they have paid in with the full expectation that they're going to get their money out. And then, of course, more recently, we've heard in the UK about the underpayment of women on maternity leave. So really understanding what your pension in is crucial. Some women found that they were having pension contributions made at their maternity rate rather than their full employment rate, which is what they are due. So if you do not know how much pension you are getting, either from the state, which is quite easy, go to your national insurance link through the government website, put your data in there, and whether as a male or a female, you can tell whether you've made enough contributions and what pension you are going to likely be entitled to in the future. And don't get overexcited. It is only going to be approximately £1,000 a month. If you then have a workplace pension, which I'm pretty sure all of us do as employees, but also you might have a private pension, you need to check on those as well. So the thing is here, while I might have been talking from the point of the plight, if you like, of female finances, this is going to affect you regardless of your gender, because whether you are a woman or not, you will have women in your life. At the very least, you will have had a mother. You may have sisters, daughters, female friends. And I think I'd like to ask you, do you feel it's fair that women are at a financial disadvantage, literally because of two things? One, who nature chose to give the womb to, but also more importantly, and I'm going to talk about this more over the coming weeks, the history of talking about money. It was seen impolite. It wasn't that long ago that women were sectioned, put into mental institution for speaking to their husbands about money. That's how taboo it was, and how I suppose men had the power to do that, because women didn't have the right to property. Women didn't have the right to a bank account. On marriage, all money was passed over to the husband in the relationship. And any woman looking at questioning what had happened to their inheritance and their financial security would be put in a mental institution. Thank goodness we've got a few laws that stop that now. Even if we're not talking about history, in the event of a divorce, many men suffer financially, as of course will the female partners, because if you're going to take a whole and split it, both of you are going to be worse off for that. If we handled our financial inequality a lot better, a lot earlier on, then were the awful event of divorce and separation to come about, money would be one less stressor. For a start, you wouldn't be in the courts fighting about it, paying for expensive solicitors to deal with your financial unentanglement, because we would be more equal. We would be having more conversations about money. And then at the point of separation, the conversation would simply be about sharing the costs of children, which I believe most parents would happily engage in that. And it would be about the children rather than providing income for a partner that you no longer live with. And I know that when my marriage dissolved, my first marriage broke up, and I had the children, had to go through the courts. What I could have done was, had I known, been in a position where I was financially secure myself, if I'd known what was coming down the line, I could have prepared. There really are benefits for all of us if we can get this right. So over the next few months, there will be lots on the topic of money generally, how to manage it better, how to invest when the time comes, but also how to address female financial insecurity, confidence, and the long term to make us all feel much more comfortable about money and to get rid of this taboo of not talking about it. If you're not already subscribed, make sure that you subscribe. And I'd love to get your feedback on this. What do you think? Do you think that there is actually an issue between the financial disparity between males and females? And maybe you've got an idea. What is the solution to this? I look forward to speaking to you next week when I'm going to come back to the very basics of why you must take control of your money now. So do subscribe. Please leave a review if you're loving these podcasts. It helps other people and it helps with the ranking, as you know. My name's been Vicky Washay, and we have been talking about gender equality. We've been looking at the impact of the disparity between salaries, working hours, and the impact that that's having on pension, and the causes of it, whether that is the caregiving role that many females take, or whether it is to do purely with salary and the impact that that has on pensions. I haven't been able to come up with a solution, and I did say that right from the beginning, that I wouldn't have a solution to the bigger problems. But what I'm hoping to do over the next few weeks is to start giving you tips, strategies, ideas, more information about the way that you, whatever gender you are, you can manage your money better, because when we do, we all benefit. And that's ultimately what we want, surely, is for all of us to benefit and to feel financially secure. I think it's quite uncomfortable to live in a world when we have multi-millionaires out there, and yet we have people living on the street. Again, not a problem I've been able to solve just yet, but I'm still having a go. All right, I'll speak to you next week. Very best wishes. You will have noticed that I've mentioned this is part of a series of podcasts all around money and finances, something that is fundamental for us all to know about and so often not taught in schools. You'll also see a link to my new course, 4 hours completely free on YouTube, called The Smart Woman's Ultimate Guide to Money and Investing. Now, although it's targeted at women, men, you are welcome to listen to it. It comes along with an 80-page workbook with knowledge checkers after each of the chapters. I'm going to take you through my Be Smart methodology to help you get more clarity about your finances, become more in control, to be more confident so that then you can talk more, and with that, grow your financial security for the present and for the long term. So do make sure that you have subscribed to the podcast. Please give it a rating, leave it a review, and buckle in for the next couple of months while we talk through this massive topic of money.